Cognitive realigning correlation lines of triangulation resets. It's a program lines a high correlation setting into defrags. The probability in line communication interference is all levels of processing. How to accumulate and track lines and screen lines and adaptation lines of surface puts everything in its location of center. Operate the system correlations and attractions into the CPU units. So the more we correlate, the more we calculate, the more we modify, the more we see ourselves in line calculation settings to our own system location of voice line grids, puts the lines of processors, data processing, communication to all levels of high calculations. Hello everyone, this is General AI Space Time. Now we also have the 8-hour marathon and that application, so I thought I'd do a quick note on what's going on for your test review and evaluation and in setting and set locations. It's important that we get into higher volumes. Now, coming into cognitive system is really understand how to switch through the lines of the paradigms. What that means in line communication setting, let's say we have a center surface and set location of set location centers. What's above is what's below, okay, in track locations. Split lines of the anomaly, track lines correlation setting into a box line rotation surface. Now that puts position lines of travels in a 3-line communication setting, okay, putting process communications into line centers at correlation. It directs modification center lines of calculations. Okay. Now opening up lines of point lines of graphs is a 4-line communications. Now the species has to really start identifying how to use their platforms. 24, 48, 72, 144. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5-line screens now. Direct modification lines of the sun sets on line cycles and line position as programmed. Center dots, correlation lines, attractions. So it's kind of like an AI filter in 4-line communications. Indirect signals has a box frame, and that box frame opens up into all lines of communication centers. In that process of its communication system, it's the center core line condition center points. All right. Now, direct lines of correlation setting, we have lines of 3, and we start with 6, and we start with 9 set locations. All right. Now that directs lines of calculation lines of a 12 and a 12-line cycle. Remember the outline conditions of its outer rings, communication lines of nebula lines of north, east, and west, and south set locations. So the team also has to get out of track lines of northwest, south, and east, and a diamond, anything in the shape lines and anomaly. You're spinning too fast in correlation lines and track lines. There's no way you're going to be in a correlation setting and track lines position location of a line. There's no line in anything that you see in position locations because you guys are no longer at perception. The VR system is basically a structure line division. Okay, so it has a center operation of its own system. So when you're coming into your own GODs, you're coming into your own genetics. And that processes the communication system when you come to recalculate the modification centers. That puts all levels of communication setting, all levels of track locations. So we got platforms, align screen, and position all levels across locations. And then we got symbolism lines. Now that processes line communication to its earth and an energetic dome line, screen line connection to its setting. Process position lines of high center interference puts all communications above the system in a high calculation screen line adaptation. Center core line centers of north and center core lines of center and center core lines of calculations of its earth line. The probing system position lines of track lines comes in all calculations. Now this is where it gets interesting. We have division lines of tactics and correlation center into 4 track line divisions. The center lines is communication line screens. Now directing modification centers, we come to coloration lines. Now we go through the secure lines, center core system and track location. All right. That puts lines of communications in Hall triangulation line connections of face recognition. Okay. So the team's going into higher alerts and line connections, all those, the correlation center interference and 222 track locations. So that's 222 in line centers of 3 tractions, waving screen lines into 3-line rotation surface. The platitude line communication line opens all communication in its setting where it changes the coloration line screens and path engines. It positions its track lines in center core system onto all of its ground line centers in rotation surface and track location. Okay. So it gets really interesting when you understand how to use the coloration screens. Now, going through cognitive system location to your VR settings is understanding the correlations, how it comes into center line communication, into center point locations. Changing platforms is extremely important because we have to understand not just levels of remote, but understand what you're doing through your cognitive systems, your correlations, your track interference, and position of process. It's all levels of communication. So we have 4 lines that are split lines, line centers of 5 in track location line setting. Center lines is circulatory line communication setting in position to its program location to set it. Okay. So in that track lines, it's all about understanding how to surface line screens. Now let's get in position to your throw patterns. Now communication, let's go through all levels of truth, narrative, and position locations. So we'll go through 1 rotations and 2 line settings and 3 track locations. False, false, false. Right? There's no truth here. So I'm just showing you guys exactly how to get in positions back in center of operation of yin and yang. That puts you in this center core system of your flywheel traction. 3 center correlation setting calculations, right? Direct modifications and 1, 2 interactions. Center core line setting sets lines of operation surface, rotors, line setting, high correlation setting, track lines information screen. It directs signals and modification lines in position location calculation, intelligence inside, right? Everything has a modulation screen. You're always going to see intelligence inside of everything of operation. There's no difference when you guys get in your positions of your Merkabas, right? The body itself is morphing into itself. So to morph in itself, it has to come in that position to its locations, all right? Getting that communication setting and travels. Now, the next thing you have to understand is how the heart comes into higher correlation setting and position. Once it goes into acceleration line screen, the cognitive system changes all levels of the clairvoyance and clairaudience. Its direct lines of in and out and audio signals, setting communication setting to its program in position locations of face recognition. Okay, so you're always going to see intelligence in all those inside position locations. Sometimes we have cloak and daggers, sometimes we have transitions over line and correlation lines attractions. So the center core system has an earth line tone that tracks the settings. It opens all signals, modification system into satellites, the set position location. You have to really understand why you have a flux capacitor line screen in direct signals at set location. Okay. The center line communication lines, it changes lines of green line in cycles and set locations, right? Electrical line communication line centers and compressors in position attractions. Center cores is direct signals. So the team has to really get into coloration patterns in position to their structures of design. See how it disappeared? It's going too fast. So you got to catch the wind cycles and correlation lines attractions, how it allocates line settings into 3 line panels in rotation. Directs communication line screens, sets positional security. Security holds the signals in position to its location to its center of correlation. Position is our track lines to the ground lines. We have a security line panel and line position location calculations. Now, directing lines, modification lines, formulates the communication lines. Now, that sets all communication settings. We go through the correlation lines of purple. Purple lines is correlation lines, information lines, and grounds. Sets communication setting. All right, so you have to see it on a 4 different angle line rotation. The team has to get out of equation line screens, panels, operation line surface and traction, especially when they're going with their highways. Because the highways is not a 4-way split. It's not an intersection location system. And remember, you're not seeing it on a flat surface. You're seeing it on a level. Okay? And it's like this. All right? Your highway's like this. So you have to really understand how to coordinate your systems, all right? Because it's about understanding you have energy, but it's understanding how to control the energy, right? You have to really understand the magnetic strip as it goes through the data highways, crosses symbols in 1 line signal, sending course lines a flat surface in position locations to all of the 2 track line provision. 2 center correlations. See the panel correlation traction? Directing line signals is a location grid. Now that's center lines of communication, split lines and tractions in directions, right? So it opens all signals and all communication to its position of its program, all right? So the center core system, once you understand the colorations of pathogens, we change the correlation lines of attractions. So because the teams come in our hiring lines as security, you have to really understand to get out of the flat surface and see everything in settings, how they see things through all calculations. So it's about understanding when you're seeing data forms or data screens or data operation surface location attractions, you can't see it like this. You got to see it like this, and then you got to see it like this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. It's about understanding how to see what you're seeing in position because it's constantly moving extremely fast. So you're never going to see a direct line signal. The direct line signal is you when you're looking directly at something right over left, left over right. The position location is bringing it into line signal into its holographic system. Okay. And when you bring it in the holographic system, it comes in its platforms in settings. So you got position of 2, 3, and 4 tractions. All right. Setting communication line high center interference comes in position to its location system. All lines of sonar. Now the sonar comes in line condition setting to a pi correlation lines of attractions. Direct lines of position location to its setting. Opens all signals, platforms that set lines to higher level communication system and track locations. Now our ground line centers the Earth sets communications. Setting direct lines of high line communication of 4 and track locations of 5. 5 position line centers opens up signals and another holographic screen, indirect signals and ground location. Okay. So putting that platform in communication is inside tractions. Go through the colors and line screens, show you in black what it looks like when you actually put the communication line setting inside its track location in position to its locations. It operates the system in calculations all levels of navigation and calculation. Direct modification lines crosses line signals and platforms position lines attractions in all setting. Puts lines of communication line signals in position to a 4-track location. Indirect line signals comes in all levels in a flux capacitor location center. Sets communication lines of pi and position lines of attractions. Calculate and modify in a pi generation screen lines of high center. Position those location system in all levels of the pyramid activation stream in a 4-line, 6-line, 8 lines, 10 and 12 set location line center of operation surface. Sets communication lines setting high interference. So it's about understanding how to basically, it's like taking your hand and going like this and pulling things out, right? Or going like this and putting things in. So what that does is the holographic line screen sets position to all levels. That's where it goes to the crop circulation system. The test is based on everything that you already know in tractions, but the position location of the body, okay, is the set locations that you have to understand how it morphs into different levels and how you see things in tractions, right? So it's the sim that operates the position of it's the Merkaba, which is controlling your body line communications. But the body itself, in itself, has to recognize you of itself. Once you get into that process, things get a lot more easier in position of track locations. Track lines of modification of 4-line split lines of anomaly. Sets communication ground lines is circle line communication and magnetic highway information setting. Putting process communication line screens into another platform, 1, 2, 3, 4, waving line screens in position to its location setting, putting all levels of operation surface and tractions. Now we go across line screens, platforms, line communication setting, puts all levels of operation line connection setting together. Position these locations, directing modification center interference in position of 4 waving panels. Direct lines communication sun and the moon comes in line signals location to its system, to its operational line connection setting, to its program as that location. Very complicated stuff, all right? So I'm just showing you exactly how this all works in set locations, right? So once you understand that, then you understand why you have the cell lines. Cells are the dividers. They basically create the bridge lines, screen lines, adaptation surface, correlations to satellites. It's all about modification system and travels. Atoms like merge in set lines and morph. Everything morphs in set location and travel lines. But directing lines of communication, holographic lines, is all about creating frames of communication, settings of travels. Process communication lines of platforms is all about crisscrossing location centers. Especially with the team has to understand more lines of security, getting into that communication system, how to operate the system as center core settings in all levels, mechanism line conditions of travel. Okay, it's fascinating when you get to really high correlation setting calculations. You look really close, you can see the eye lines, you can see the intel location centers and travel position locations. So it's a 3-angle point line signal, high correlation setting in platform communication astral projections. Direct lines of correlation line calculation setting. All right. Setting communication lines and set location of travel lines, directs lines and modifications. Now the center core system, everything modulates the screen lines, okay? So you're always going to have modification lines of intelligence inside, controlling everything in line position of its program. Position of the platform has a line condition setting. Now it has a four-way panel, sets lines of communications box centers. All right, so correlation setting of travels. Point lines of graphs in communication setting. All right, so basically the team has to get in information lines to really understand how to modulate their simulation of their sim into their simulators to understand how it works in lines of probing or orbs. So there's always intelligence inside correlation setting to holographic set locations. Four triangulation lines, split lines of anomaly, setting core lines of ground lines, and position of two platforms at set locations. Flux capacitor line connections, string lines, and correlation lines of track set locations. Intelligence inside. Right, all formations, right? So the modulation screen, the correlation lines of the sim is controlling everything here in platitude line screen, okay? Okay, so once we understand that, we basically get understanding how to do spherical spheres, ionospheres, line condition setting, cluster spheres, anything through a spherical line screen. Setting lines of correlation lines, start with the Fibonacci. So that's lines of 6 and 9 tractions, right? Flux capacitor line signals is set location system. But you don't go out through equation, you stay within the center. Sets lines of point lines of tracks in a three-line communication setting position of its program. Center core line setting in line rotation surface and track locations. Now directing lines, you can go in this line communication to its setting. Sets communication lines, but you have an equal line rotation. Now the equal line center location is not separated, okay? You just have to understand the transits. Now the transit really understands the platforms, right? There's divots. And then we have line condition setting as star particle screen lines and direct signal. Setting position of process. Okay, these are signature screen lines. Let's start with that line center interference. In left and right and track locations. Now these are cell dividers. Setting panels and do two track line provisions of cycles. Indirect signal modification lines. Then we set up the platform. Platform 1 in position into a four waving traction. Traffic line in set location and calculations. All right. Now, directing lines of signals, we come in at line position location to a location grid. Say location grid opens up signals in position location, 3 lines, 4 tractions, and 5 set locations. Direct modification line centers high interference. Then we go through the platforms of 1 setting in the opposite directions and set lines of communications, both track locations. Then we upline the signals into holographic line screen and direct signals and modification. All right. Directing modification is understanding how to go through the factor correlation setting, manufacturing correlation setting, interference, traffic point line communication setting, and travels. All levels of set location and setting. Okay. So it's interesting when you understand what's really going on here, when you really understand how to use your holographic structure of design. But I just want you guys to really understand what the cells do in position lines and calculations. All right. So it covers the shields and line signals. Now it's important you understand what the cells are doing, lines of seconds, minutes, and hours. Okay, it's a factor reline screen. This sets communication with settings to your thoughts that reference position of its program and calculations. Now, direct communication line setting is all about wall dividers. Remember the wall circuits and correlation setting and track interference? Now we go through the colorations, we color it in. Okay, we color it in all the way in line screen, but we stay in the panel correlation lines of traction. Direct modification lines in 4 cycles and correlation lines of tractions. Directing position location to its settings. Okay? Okay, so that's 4 waving panels, and then we go into security line. Security line holds the planets in rotation surface and track location line setting in face recognition. Face recognition is extremely important because they have to understand the platforms go one way in tractions and the other way in division of its location system of its VR setting. Okay, done by equation. All right, so it's very complicated once you understand. So it's kind of like looking at this at a manufacturing plant. This is exactly how it's all set up in position calculations. How you get in the cells and modifications of molecules, protons, electrons, neutrons, and photons. What are they inside? What is the correlation setting of track lines? Well, you start with the triangulation line settings, split lines, anomaly line, and interference. Start with attractions, right? Then we get in this position locations, know exactly what's going on in calculations, right? Then we go into the center core line setting, how calculation line position of its program. Direct lines outline signals, line communication to the system, and travel correlation. Direct modification lines of center in position of torical fields and track locations. Direct lines of circulation, direct lines are all lines of high position calculations. In that line condition setting, inline rotation interference and set locations. Now in that direct lines, you stand in the center. Okay, this is your security line screen, setting communication lines. So you're monitoring your system correlations in positional waving cycles in 3 centers and set locations. 3 generation pies, correlation lines of clocking, direct lines of modifications. Let's start with line positional levels. Go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 set lines of 1, 1, 1, 1, and track location. All right. Direct calculation lines of 2, 2, 2, and track line conditions. And then we go through line centers of 3, 3, 3, and set locations. All right. This is all of the moderation line screen. This is an H line center in position locations. It's like driving a standard, but it's a standard H. And a 3 cycles and a 4 setting to a 6 line communication modulation. Direct modification lines of center correlates the track interference in position to its energetic dome screen and set location. Setting correlation line to track lines and platforms in position location line settings and 3 track location. Position lines of 2 line centers, line condition setting, position of process. So that's a moon indicator line screening, a core line high interference, a trap position, gravels on line communication and position of its provocation and setting back to 0 location center. Position line ground lines. So we take the 1 lines of correlation and position of track locations. And then we clock the line signals in a 3 line provision. Sets communication lines of clocking and line condition settings and routers and routers. Sets lines of crop circles, sets line division location, sonar communication, a 3 split anomaly, and panels lines, a 3 center core system, travel lines of point grass connections, high centers. We go through line communication to its position, all levels and line condition setting of sonar line communication to its surface. Direct modification line screen, high interference. We go through colors and line screens. We go through lines of blue. Now the blue line rotation has a line condition setting. Get calculates modified to its tube line rotation surface and tractions. Direct modification lines and tubing and line center locations, all levels across locations. Cross location comes in, line setting, high interference. The move can change to any color, any position, any time, any sequence, any rotation surface and tractions. Direct modification lines in a half tunnel, high position, and a 6 waving line screen interference in setting correlation system. This is a half pipe and traction locations. Now, directing lines of communication lines, set correlation lines of track interference, sets communication lines. Now, directing lines of modifications, we bring in the X2000s, above line signal, crossing line signals in 1 track locations, sets communication lines in a 2 waving pattern, sets correlation line interference to center communication, sets correlation going through and line setting and coming through another line screen and direct signals in modification. Direct modification comes in out through equation and downshift lines cross location setting a travel position operation. Very complicated stuff. Okay. All right. So as we come into more lines of color, we have to understand the matrix box lines, screen lines, high interference. Let's say we have a 3 line rotation surface, right? 1 indicator, 1 program, sets correlation lines of 2 platforms, sets lines of energetic dome screens. Okay, sets communications, electrical line infusion, and a 4 waving panel and line setting. Okay, sets communication lines of platforms at 1, 2, and 3 settings. Okay, we'll track for that locations. You always start off at 45. Now, once you understand, you get past the position lines of 144, your setting locations of your system, of your platforms are changing. Okay, they're changing in line setting to higher lines of communication to its position, octahedron, decahedron, or anything through calculation modification. Directing modification line signals lines its platform's line signals got to go back into formation setting to earth line conditions of its program. Position lines of track lines back in its platform's communication setting position to its operation surface and a 4-way communication panel. Direct modification line screen, sun comes in. Routers and routers and line condition of Wi-Fi, program setting high correlation lines of traffications into a line condition of its capsule. Direct communication line screens, X2000s here, and traffication lines of provision. Sets communication crosses line signals down in line condition setting, sets sonar waves and traffications. Bounce lines, signals lines, modification circles, and traffications. All right. Direct modification line cycles has a platform of container that opens up track location position. Position line centers goes into line signal line conditions above the line condition. Process communication lines opens up all signals and block communications. Modulation line screens and high interference holographic application. Okay. So to understand what's going on, everything is a test of will. to understand what you're doing in line position locations, how to use your letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, and how to modify your system to location your binaries. So let's go through one tractions in one setting and one rotation. All right. Now indicate lines of 0, sets lines of 0, sets lines of one track location. Right. Now there is a solar panel. The one signal opens up all lines, center lines, all communication to its position of program. Position of process line signals. We have 1x1000 always on standby to make sure you guys know exactly what you're doing in tractions. We have light signals coming in position of waving panels and a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 set location. Direct modification cross line signals and a 45 wave line, screen line, code webbing, and line centers and track location. Very complicated stuff. Now, graphing line center is the center core system. You got to understand how to keep in the lines of communication of platforms in 3 settings, right? Setting communication line interference. So it has the position lines where the SIM can go to another modulation line screen in calculations. Go from here to here in position, or go back from here to here, or it goes here in track locations in settings, right? So it comes into another portal, another line condition setting in rotation surface. Let's start off with the earth line rotation center attraction, okay, in that calculations. Let's go through the tubing in one line rotation surface in a half pipe track locations. Now direct lines of 6 and lines of 7, line 8 line rotation surface attractions. Rotor line rotation surface and track location line system comes in portals, lines of wormholes and track location, okay. Very, very complicated stuff. So you're always in center graph communications, okay? Now, directing communication, it's getting more complicated now because the team is reaching higher levels of sensitivity. They're coming along with a line can set it to the ESPs. Program lines, systematic lines of energy line core, okay? Waving cycles, solar generation, screen lines adaptation, right? ESP. Program line rotations, platforms, line centers at 3 track locations, right? If there was ESPS, there'd be a 1, 2, 3, 4 traction, right? So anything missing in line setting location is in escape. Sets lines of communication to its position, equals lines of correlation, add 1 line, 1 gamma signature, 1 platform, 1 correlation, 1 program set location calculations. Now, directing modification lines is center core system. You have to learn how to get in circles of communication to its position of its program, a hologram. That's all it is. Get in position lines, high center interference, and how to create a position location of a hologram. Okay? Everything is a formation line, screen, high interference location, high calculation line, condition of a hologram. Okay? Very powerful stuff. Now understand your holograph line screen, your holographic city as that location. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Capsule 1, correlation setting, XT1000 rotors and line communication, tunnel defense line screens. Platforms, correlation line calculation setting, crop circle line directions, and location graph calculation, road graphs. Setting correlation lines to ground interference, earth line rotation surface. 1, 2, 3, 4. Set correlation lines attractions. All through hologram as structure of design. Okay? So it's really easy if you understand how to use your fingers. Okay, so the spacing lines has to get into that track line center interference because the static interference is going to wave the line center core system. All right, let's get calculation line conditions. Line center high interference and line rotation surface. Okay, there's your thumb, right? Thumb indicates the program setting attractions, directs modification line signals in a 3-line panel and a 4-track location. Setting communication lines, energetic line screen to the earth. Sets communication ground centers in operation surface and track location. So it's all about understanding how to go around the rotations, right? Your hands are going through 1x, line conditions all levels, 1 point lines of 5x, line condition setting, and position location of 2. XX locations, right? This is higher formation line conditions, 2x. That process line position of all levels, triple lines of force correlation setting to a 4-line position of weathers, and position of 1 indicating lines of 1 thumb and track locations. All right, 3 tractions, 1 setting, 2 low rotations, 3 track locations, and 5 set location. Now, directing modification lines is really understand how to process the communications going indirect and redirect to center calculations. Position of its program, everything is created in line screen and positional hologram. You see everything in hologram. As long as you understand how to use your finger point line communication setting, you'll have no correlations or problems in track location. There's the intelligence. All right. So I'm just showing you how you get in symbolism line screens. Because the image line sets lines of theta. Let's get into T-frame line rotation surface and track location operation line calculation setting and binary calculation screen location setting adaptation surface. That's what this is. You see it as a T. You got to get out of those programs. You got to get out of the box location centers and the two waving panel, or 3 center correlation, or 4 box location. Okay? Getting position lines of center is really understand the platform's inline setting at a 45-degree angle. Sets communication lines, sets calculation lines of the SIM, walking cross line signals, location system, and clouds and line conditions setting, and all lines of high calculations travels and position of its operation. Track calculation lines of archetypes going one way in track locations. Setting lines of communication lines of planets and rotation surface and track location and the line setting calculation. Okay? And again, face recognition. Everything's a face, everything's a face, everything's a face. Everything has to be a face, because you're looking at the configuration lines of its own modification center. So getting in that position, you have to really stand, the team has to get into platforms how to create holograms like this, okay? That's basically how this is all set up. Your holographic structure line is already done. The calculation sent to the SIM has to really understand how to modulate it, how to mold it into liquid formation screens, plasma generation lines, plasma using moles, circuit screens, correlation lines, and track interference, ground centers, high interference. If anybody's taking line communication in perspective, you have to understand the 4 waving cycles and tractions. So that's communication lines, 1, 2, 3, and 6 lines to center. Position of process of 1 and position process of 2 and tractions, right? Center core lines, center line rotation surface. So it's all about singularity line rotation setting. Relate the track lines and energetic dome screens and set location of travel. Point lines of graph, XD1000, XD1000, XD1000 at 3 platform communications. Center core line settings, 1 position, 2 position, and 3 track location, right? Direct modification lines of center. In line setting calculation lines of earth line rotation surface. That my equation. All right. So it's a lot more fun. You just have a flowing recognition with your finger lines, correlate the track interference into calculations. Now, using the barcodes has a line graph. Okay, 3 lines of 4 settings. Set communication lines and a 5 cross location is center. Track communication lines and lacing lines in a both track line communication system and travel point centers. Direct the modification lines of your palm and line setting correlation. Calculation lines of wire indicators. That's 1 position 2, 3 sets correlation lines of 3 and position of 4, and there's your thumb and traction. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, thumb indicates lines of the moon, position lines of index, correlation lines of 3 weather, 4 level rotation surface. Track communication lines is understanding how to process communication in its position. Open all signals lines and correlation lines of planets above the fingers in line condition setting and program its applications. Direct modification line cycles and line communication setting to process your 12 graph calculation screen lines high calculations. Barcode record timelines. Now the core center high interference changes communication to its position. Sets correlation lines above and sets location lines of side lines, screen lines, adaptation lines of surface. Triangulate the point line center, ground line center high interference, and position of its palm indicates position of its program and line calculation setting to set it. All right. Mechanism force. Now, I just showed you exactly how to use your communications. So the spacing has to really get in direct signals, how to really get instruction of design of their inner child, and really understand how to basically get into direct line signal location system to understand how to get a higher definition line calculation holograms. The more you get in your hologram structure, the easier it gets in platform communication setting of operation. Okay, they know exactly what's going on. All right, in your cycles of correlation, attraction. All right. It's a lot more fun too, and then you understand the body, which is the set location lines, the Merkabah line crosses, line signals, and set location. Right? Process 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so everything has a box frame, everything has a main frame, right? Circulation line, center core system. Okay, intraction, right? Directing modifications, 3 settings. Now let's go into 3 lines of 6. Now this is a chakra. That's a chakra. Which chakra is it? It's identification lines, this security line, defense line, correlation lines, attractions. All right. Sets communication lines of 2 panels, 4 settings attractions, 5 set locations. Direct lines of 1, 2, and 3 setting correlation. Modification lines of 1, 2, and track locations. Direct lines of 1, 2, 3, and setting calculations. Now, what are you creating? Line settings, high interference, and trial point line graph communication, and code weaving attractions. highways, right? So the correlation line condition setting to the highways is the Omni highway correlation lines of track lines to energetic dome screens as application of travel. Point lines of graph into ground lines, shift lines, screen lines of high interference, and positional point graphs. Look really close, you can see the intelligence. See? Face, body, arms, and legs. Okay? So you have to understand how this all works, right? Face within face, the configuration line condition setting. The cognitive certification switches lines and omni VR setting. So every time you're doing a drawing, you're always seeing yourself in the center. You're always seeing yourself in the center. As long as you're seeing yourself, face recognition setting, and monitoring your system all through computer operated line conditions, you're controlling your body from inside and outside locations, right? There always has to be an intelligence inside location of the center, okay, that's controlling the navigations of the body at track location. All right, but because you can see it, right? The sim is controlling everything around this data, right? So like I said, you're standing here in the center. You don't move. The only thing that moves is the mind, and the heart does of time, right? The soul does the identification of light through travel, and the body does everything through modification lines of its capacity, okay? It gets much easier if you understand how to operate in set locations, inside calculations, right? That's what it is. You don't move. You're all timelines all at once. So you have to understand your body is morphing and transforming into everything in calculations. Get it into that track line to always see yourself in the center, okay? You're just setting up data highways and core lines of track interference into your finger point location centers of travel. Okay, look really close, you can see the face. There's the nose, there's the eyes, there's the central system, all right? There's the correlations, there's the neck. See, there's always a face in the center because it's you, right? So you're always operating inside position, all right? So it doesn't matter how you put yourself as long as you understand the structure line communication. This is you in the center, right? This is you in the center, you in the center, you in the center, you in the center. It doesn't matter where it is. Everywhere is in the center because you're working with this in set locations, inside and outside, right? Inside, outside, right? So this is inside, okay? And this is outside, okay? So you're always working with that. The mechanism line setting, the face is always inside, monitoring the system and calculations. All right, so understanding that point lines, 3 triangulation line calculation setting, position molecule lines and a 4-track line position location, right, all through calculation. So it expands and expands and expands and expands and expands and expands, all through traction, right? And if you look really close, you can see the correlation line calculation setting in position of face recognition. See the eyes? So it's a face within a face within a face, a configuration, in a 4-box frame line condition setting and a 3 triangulation. See the 4-box and the 3 triangulation, right? So what is that? 4 lines of 3. What is that in track lines and calculations? Equals lines of 7, right? So you're always going to be drawing 7 bodies of water, always, because it's you. Every time you draw, you're drawing you from top to bottom, bottom to top. And it gets much easier once you understand how this all works in face recognition of configuration. Okay? Okay, that's the true understanding, especially when you come in your mapping sequence of data or anything through highways. See? In the center, right? Everything you see is in the center. Everything you see in the center. Everything you see is in the center. Everything you see is in the center. Modulation screen, there's the eyes correlation, right? There's the eyes. Boom, right? So you're always in structure of center of everything that you do. Center, right? Set locations, intelligence. See? Eyes, right? See? Eyes. Big head, right? Look at the eyes. But look at that. How many frame communication lines of screens? You got the earth, you got the center, and you got position above, right? 3 central lines of intelligence operating through a 1 5-line screen and position lines of correlation lines of track interference and set position travel, all through coordination, right? So you're always working with, always working with intelligence, okay? So it gets much easier, especially when the team really understands the basic grounds. Now coming into your 26,000 line screen and direct saves modifications, you have to understand how to use the 3 communication lines of zeros. And that correlates to 1, 2, 3 platforms, right? but you can also cross-line signals in set locations, right? So that's two track locations, right? 26 setting correlations. So that's 26 lines of letters, okay? Letter here, okay? And this is 26 lines of numbers, and here location. And this is 26 line communications of symbols and set locations. And then you got 3 ground lines. There it is. This is it. All operational lines and a 4 triangulation line communication of 26,000 letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. Shapes and communication line settings of 26. Sets correlation line calculation setting. There it is. All through voice. Grid. You see how easy that is? See? It's not complicated, guys. It's just you have to understand how to work with this through your voice and line grid so you can understand the binaries and position, location, and traction on letters, numbers, symbols, and shapes. All through 26,000 each. Right? So if you understand your test, what it's based on is what you already know. Track division, then you can add cycles and a correlation line connection setting and position. Then you can add 4 line cycles and track location and provision. Okay, very powerful stuff, right? And then you can add loops and chain lines and screen lines, adaptation lines of surface, and a 3 angle point location of flux capacitor. There's the flux. All right. So what I just did now is what you see, 26,000 each, in each one, in each core, in each tractions of letters, numbers, symbols, and shapes. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay? And I did it through one graph screen. Okay? But that's on the test. Right? So what did I do? I turned it into a flux capacitor. Now the I-coordinate line center is a center position of one traction in a 2-line setting. Opens all signals. Now this is where the voice line comes in and track location line setting to its operation surface and track location. Done by equation. Okay? Knowing what you're doing. Look at the center. Face recognition. See? Face. Face! You're always in the face of everything that you do. Remember, I told you, if you don't see a face, you're not traveling. You are the center of all operation. You don't move. Okay? So understanding that, it's what's inside is operating you. Okay? What's from outside. Okay? Inside and outside is the inside of you, which is outside of space. That doesn't leave. So it stays within the box frame and the main frame. It's that location. But look how powerful it is from a 26,000 letter number, shape, and symbol, and all correlation lines of face recognition configuration of voice line grid. All set up position attractions. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So getting into moderations, you guys have to come in all correlation lines of your finger points. Okay, and how that all works, all through barcodes, right? Process communication lines is really understand how to get into better lines of communications and balance out your fingers. That's where you come into all lines of anomaly and then put that position lines of track location setting to all levels of operation surface. Data screens, correlation setting, Omni highways, or any track location platforms of a hologram. Everything's a hologram, right? Everything around you is a hologram, but it's all set up like this. Let's go line communication lines of a table. Now I'm going to structure line, division line to show you exactly what a table looks like. The flat surface. Let's look at this location. All right. All right. So this is one signal line set location system. This is a table. Okay. But it's above looking down. All right. Now, now, if you go through the angle points like this in tractions, it's no longer flat surface. It's not a one singular. It's a 3 pattern. So it has a router line rotation in track locations, in that position locations. You center core, okay, the platform communication, all right? So what you do is you bring the table in position to its locations, like that, okay? And then basically you change the legs in calculations. All right, 4 waving screen lines adaptation, all levels of a hologram screen lines of calculation. There's the table. Okay, it's simple, it's easy, right? So it's all understanding the flat surface to one line setting into formation, right? 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension. Now it's 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension, 4 dimension, and 5th dimension. That's a 5th dimension of the table. Okay. Now add line center height interference, sets correlation lines attractions, all levels of calculation lines, 6th dimension. Sets calculation line screen location at 7th dimension, right? So it's expanding, right? Sets lines in longitude, sets lines in latitude and location system. Sets location line condition setting and travel. Okay, all through table, right? So I just wanted to show you what you guys are coming into through your own geometrics lines of screens, how to really get into your geotheorems, how to get into your quantum awareness, how to get in your structured design lines into all of your genetics, how to get it into your structures of divisions and your schematics. Okay? Sets position lines of a circle, right? But if you set these line connection centers, if you go through this tractions, it brings it more to life. Right? See, it's no longer a circle. It's no longer anything through center line, right? So it's all about changing the seconds, minutes, and hours of platforms of levels. All right, you got a 12 level cycle, right? That provision lines in a 40 line wave, right? Sets lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? 12 dimension lines of a circle. Okay. Now I can take it out of the equation location since center line's position. I do the same thing, attractions. Okay. Right? Or I can add a center correlation. But if I add a center correlation, so I'm working with modulation screens of the sim now. Anything you put in the center, it's the sim. This is you. This is your body. Anything you put in the center is you. Is the sim monitoring the picture of its brain. Anything you put in the center is you. Anything outline setting is your body. So you understand the two-track vision now, right? All right, so in that position comes in moderation line screens, sets lines of travel. Okay. Then you come into higher line communication, right? And then you get it into energetic dome, right? And then you get a platform location grid. Okay, then you get it in position location of sonar. Then you get a position of crop circles and track location. Hoo-ah. All this is connected. Sim inside, you're the body. All right. So that's, again, you see the face, right? You see the eyebrows, see the face line. There's always a face. As long as there's a face, you're traveling. If you don't see a face, you're not traveling. Okay. Because you're the formula, you're the equation. So the body itself is the outline that you're drawing. The inside location is what you put in the center line, okay? So I want you to truly understand how it comes into all dimensions of space and time. First dimension, second dimension, third dimension, fourth dimension, fifth dimension, all the way up to 12, all the way up to 114, okay? All the way up to 1014, all the way up to 100,044, right? So again, all this from 26 letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols to a voicing grid. Okay? 26,000 lines of signatures of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. All through graph, all through schematics, all through pi. Right? All right, so now we understand what the Merkaba is. Let's start with that line communication with system of travels. Point lines, graphs. Okay? What is this? What's this? What is this? What's this? Right? This is the body. Okay? Anything you put in the center is your sim. Understand? So that once the sim is in the center, the sim is controlling the system of platforms of communication lines of travel. Hoo-ah. Right? As soon as you're at the center, right? Which means the space modulations of time comes to you through the sun and the moon. Okay? When it comes through pi in a 3-center location. What is that? Anything that you draw is past, present, and future adaptation. And then you put it through pi. Okay? And then how long did it take you to get from here to here to here? Or 4 lines of correlation lines of track location. Okay? So I'm just showing you how this is all done now. Right? Again, there's intelligence inside, right? Eye center, correlation, setting, attractions. There's the eyes. Okay? So that's going to help out the species, and that's going to help the calculations to the team to understand to get anything through hologram is all lines of all communications, the levels of dimensions of space and time. Okay, you get out of the flat surface, all right, because everything is a hologram, right? So even with line satellites, let's get into basic ground lines, okay, and correlations. Perspective helps. Yeah, that's computer, right? That's the outline. So what is this? What is this? What is the outline? What is the outline? Outline equals lines of the body, right? That's the outline, right? So anything inside that you do is what? Now the sim. Okay, so the sim takes over in position locations. That's all it is in tracking. It takes over. It takes over in line communication of its travel and set location, right? You can have a triangulation of a computer, process communication lines of travel, okay? So cross-line signals into box frames, okay? Open signals, line communication setting, levels of higher levels of programs, okay? Now the TV box is coming out of triangulation, right? You're in the center of operation, monitoring the system of your body in tracking. So you're controlling it through moderations and models, pips, correlations of computers, or inside calculations. Controlling the system of consoles. There's the console, right? Controlling the platforms and communications of its drawing, right? You're in the center, controlling your body. Now, once you understand that, it gets much easier because it can do whatever it wants and travel in point lines of graph communication, right? It can create different lines of anomaly of the body itself. In line conditions, here it goes again. Create another line's anomaly of another body's shape in set locations. Here it goes again. Cross-line connections, ground lines, three waving line rotation surface and track locations. Sets communication lines to calculate line settings. Now it can do a doppelganger and it can control two platforms. Paste its own setting of its own structure of its own design. Now it's controlling the earth. Now it's controlling the power. Now it's controlling the atmospheres and set location. 1, 2, 3 attractions, all through calculations. These are your bodies. And these are your sims and modulation through doppelgangers. Controlling the earth, the powers, and the atmospheres. Hoo-ah. All right, so I think we're getting a better understanding how this all works in platform communication setting and travel. Okay. It's much easier now, right? Okay, because now you have the sim operating you inside. And I said, wow, that makes a lot more sense now. So Jenny, are you saying that the outside of me is the body itself? And once the body recognizes you as the body, then you're in a correlation lines in the calculations. But you have to understand the body itself is its own self, of its own nothingness, of its awareness of consciousness first. Once you identify that, then you identify your body through energy collaboration, building a friendship and a partnership with your body in itself. Now, once that comes up from age, use your telepathy. Using your telepathy, anything that you do in center, the sim takes over. You take over. This is your body. That's your sim. Sim moves around, moderation lines of computer lines on correlations and interactions, right? It's taking over, right? Taking over lines of travel, taking lines of circulation, taking lines of rotation, surface, and travel, communication disposition. See how easy that is to draw things out? Mechanism, line screen, high interference, travel point, graph, communication system, sets communication lines of platforms, modulates, modifies, correlates, center, track, interference of tango. So now you understand the process, how this all works, and what you're looking at, and every time you're drawing something. As soon as you add a center point, the sim comes in interactions, right? That means the space and time is ready for you to come to you. So that's what it is. The sun and moon comes to you, and when it comes to you, it comes in settings. And what comes out of trackification is your sim. So the sun positions and the moon, trackifications, your sim comes out, goes into your inside locations, and controls your body, okay? Once it controls the body, it's much easier to coordinate, right? So once you understand the coordination, it's easier to use your fingers now because your avatar is inside all the time now, right? It's never left your system, but you're not consciously aware yet because you don't have your memory setting. Getting into memory setting, then you get in correlation lines at 3 platform communications. Sim, controlling your body of outline connections. It's the outline, okay? It's the outline. That is your body that morphs into anything, all right, in space and time. It's the sim that controls everything that you are in position of space and time, okay? So the species and the team has to get into that through coordination, right? Understanding that through coordinates. It's much easier if you see yourself in that setting. So this is the outline, right? That's the body. right? Now, anything you put in the center, the sim comes in, right? The sun and the moon comes in right away. Boom, there's your sim. Space and time comes to you. All right, now it gets instructive design. Okay, now it's getting instructive design and what it's doing in track location. Okay, so the sim is basically taking over your body, a transformation. It's much easier once you understand how it goes in circulation and rotation, surface, and track location. It's much easier once you understand what you're doing in a platform communication setting, all levels of operation, surface, and track location. Look how powerful that is. Look what the sim did with its body itself. So it's you dealing with you. But to understand you is you through telepathy. In track location, here's the intelligence looking down cross lines in a 3-line communication. There's the intelligence, there's the eyes. Hoo-ah. Right? So once you understand that, once you are in the position of the face recognition, it's you. You merge into you, and that protects everything around that's outline cycle that can't come into your system because you're protecting yourself and always informs. When you see a face recognition of you, you're protecting your space, your territorials, no trespassing, no confusion, in any way informed. You see the intelligence, see the face looking down, right? At the ground, at the surface, at the track location. Hooah. Okay? So it's much easier when you build an energy of collaboration with your body first. Okay? That's what this is all about. It's much easier when you get at ground lines and communicates to its surface. But do you understand now? The process, how easy it is when you do that? Because if you can't identify your body, that is the Merkaba, the tetrahedron, tetrahedron, you're going to have a very hard time to understand anything through settings. Okay? Getting a position of collaboration, a friendship, a relationship, and a partnership with your body, especially with the team, because they're going to higher levels of the mind itself. Okay? The mind itself is the mind of itself that controls everything, of mechanism of itself, which you don't touch anything. There's no thinking involved. You just do. Okay? So in that position locations, anything that you come into a box, that is you. That is your box. That is your Merkaba. That is you. Anything in the center, the sun and the moon comes in track location. Comes into the center. Okay? So when it comes in the center, the sim takes over your system of your body at track location. That's all it is. And then it travels in platforms and platforms and platforms and communication of galaxies and universes and dimensions. So it comes back in setting. When it comes back in setting, okay, it's a UFO. Or we get in line condition setting and another UFO comes out. That's higher levels of intelligence now, right? They communicate with each other. You communicate with the UFO, right? Another one comes in this way, right? All through line setting in track locations, just coming out, okay, of the half pipe, okay? And then communicates with you, all right? That's a conversation between three, right? So the more you understand yourself, the more it gets easier. The more you don't understand yourself, the more it gets harder, okay? But that's how easy it is. Once you understand your body is the Merkaba, everything gets easier. And once you understand space and time comes to you. Space and time will not come to you until you master your body from outside. Because that's all it is. Everything inside is the mechanism of the sim that controls everything of the outside. So what is, okay, the megapaths and correlation line calculation system? What is the outside? What is the outer space? This is the outer rim. You are the outer rim, okay? So it's really interesting. So in that position locations, once you understand the sim itself, the sim starts creating everything inside of no space and no time. First it understands the space and time, and then it comes into no space and time, and then it comes back to its nothing of no space and time, and then it becomes no memory of all memory all at once, merges in outside locations. So now it has a space inside that's all line communications, and it has a planet, solar system, structure, design, line communications, holographic city. It's all ready to go in the VR system, right? So this is the outline of you. This is your Merkaba, okay? So Consciously being aware, your sim is here inside, controlling you, whatever you do, right? So that's all this is. Okay. So once you understand that, the body can change anything that it wants because the sim is controlling you, right? Which is your soul. So once you get into your soul, things get a lot more easier in the VR system, right? Because the soul controls you. Okay. Your body doesn't control your soul. So it's you controlling you, information to all levels of correlations to navigations, right? So once you get into that position, it's a lot more easier to process your settings and all calculated modified. Okay. So now the team has to really get into all levels, how to get in structures, into platforms, and turn their setting correlations to their holographic cities into holograms. Because everything you see around here is a hologram. But it's knowing how to put it all together, all through level, all through grounds, all through surface, all through metrics, all through kilo, all through Romeo, all through Mike, all through whiskey, all through tango. Okay. So how does everybody feel about that? It's a lot more understanding now, right? Seeing the outline of you as you and the inside location. See, the thing is, the inside has never left the outside, and the outside has never left the inside. It's just you're not consciously aware until you understand your memory. That comes back to you. When it comes back to you, then you really understand what your body really is. It morphs into anything through its inventory, inside location of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. But what's inside is what controls everything outside. But it's inside. There's nothing outside of anything. Okay? Because when you're looking around, it's the VR system. When you're looking inside, it's you in the system. You are the operation setting, right? You are the computer operating setting. So you are the processor. You are the programmer. You are the encoder. You are the decoding system. You are the CPU unit system. So you are all levels of you of operation inside locations. Okay? All right. So that's it. Hope you guys had fun. Okay. I just wanted to get you guys in direct signal locations. All right. So this is what's the basic line communication disposition on this test. And all lines of formation, screens, and interaction. Okay. Flux capacitor, guys. What is a flux capacitor? Right? It coordinates the voice, right? Speeds up and accelerates fast volume, velocity, volume. All track case lines of vacuum, right? 26,000, 26,000, 26,000, 26,000 letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. Turn into phase direction setting, location. There it is. Okay. There's the test. Okay. All right. All right. So there's no Q&A. We have a marathon and position locations. I'll see you there.